On the web page, there are basically 4 columns, and you can click on any one of those lines. And when you click on those lines, another page will open up with other line items on it, and you can click those lines, which will open up into a video or possibly a document file. The documents are usually identified with a DOC, meaning they're a text file that you can read. And it's for further explanation if you want that method to identify things with. And oftentimes that's good depending on what the topic is. Now, hundreds and hundreds of videos have been made, but this video is probably one of the most important as far as I'm concerned, because it will help you reduce the learning curve to get you to the point at which you're developing your own scans and figuring out how you want to build them. As I've indicated in other videos, there are over 400 pre-built indicators that will define certain things. Like, for example, one thing that works well is divergent things. For example, a pair. You can take zip red and zip gray is a pair, and they can be in divergence. When zip red is up, you can plug that as an indicator into the scan, and you can also plug in the indicator zip red is down, and it'll show you, it'll print out a list of all those stocks that, with the conditions that you have, that also have zip red up and zip gray down. There are thousands of possibilities off of these basic indicators that we've put together. When you look at a scan, you'll see this page right here. This is what the scan looks like, and all I've done is I've gone down to the bottom of my list and just highlighted the zip lowest scan, and this is the one we're going to look at. And you do that by hitting the center button that says Format, and you're going to go in and be able to look at the scan, see what the criteria is, and identify how and what you might want to modify. If over on the left side here is the Insert button, and this is the button that you would press to create a new scan. And then of course you got the Run button over here. If you hit that, this particular scan will rerun, and whatever qualifies in the market will be printed out under the conditions that you stipulate. So now, assuming I press this Format button, this screen right here opens up, and this is the search criteria screen, and it gives us on the top line. I've got average 10-day volume is greater than 100,000 shares, and so basically I'm just telling the computer that I don't want any stocks that don't have at least 100,000 shares sold each day. Now that's really low, but it's set that way because I want more choices, and there's some that you still can't deal with it because you can't buy enough shares quick enough. But those are issues that you'll see as soon as you get involved, and you're maybe very aware of what I'm trying to say right now. The second line is close, and it says the close is greater than $5. And then the third line is last, so the last price is a display line, which basically is print me. And I do that so that when I run the scan, I can have the price printed. The next line says that the close the day before was less than $100. So basically I'm looking at everything between $5 and $100, and that's a pretty big spread, but that's the way I've got this particular scan set up. And the last line, of course, is your day trading Visual Basics Zip Zion lowest alert or indicator. And this shows, and this indicator, when it comes out, it'll come out where the alert button or this alert is. It'll come out. If I press this button right here, I mean, I did, but you can't see the pop-up screen. But it has the Zip Zion or alert that you can choose. And to make it print out this indicator, you have to have the alert here, and you have to have true in the operator column. Otherwise it does not work. There, as I mentioned in other videos, that there are over 400 pre-built indicators that we have, and you can utilize any one of those, making literally millions of combinations of ways and methods to find that gap, to find those gaps, or to find those cycles or reversal patterns. The system, the DTVB system, is a system of reversal, of recognizing reversals or cycle tops and cycle bottoms. And in so doing, if you've had a chance to listen to a few other videos, you've probably picked up on how we can identify market strength, or the strength of market forces or market pressures within the system through indicator line length and a few other ways. And in so doing, then you also I'm not sure where you are on how many videos you've looked at, you may also recognize the three-step formula that we have, in which the end result is that through the use of patterns and good conditions, we have a formula in which we trade only high probability stocks. In other words, there's an extremely high probability that that stock is going to go either up or down, whichever one we're looking at, the next day. And so we trade that stock. You're probably, I'm going to guess that probably 15 to 20%, maybe 25% of the stocks available to purchase, you can determine a market strength that might be above normal. The vast majority of them are just going to be normal cycle changes, and obviously there's a lot of continuation patterns as stocks move through cycles from a low cycle to a high cycle. Now, that being said, if I press this button here under Select Criteria, what happens is that this here screen pops up, and this is the list of the 400 indicators that I've talked to you about. These particular ones are basically, you can add colors onto the chart separately, like Power Blue, Power Zion, Power Green, and some people prefer to do that. Some people look at the system and say it's too cluttered, and they want something. Well, that's not the way to do it, but we have offered that to be done this way. The main thing, the main idea is that you can go down to the bottom and you can find, like, here is the chart copy for the master long-term trend. Here's the chart copy for the moving averages, and you can pick different thing. Here's the main. If you add this indicator right here, it's the main candle chart bands. All the bands on the chart, both of these, the band chart main candle and the main candle chart bands, it's just two different bands of the same thing with all the indicators on them. All the, the bands on them, because there's 4 separate bands, upper and lower bands on the candle chart. And then there's a long-term trend chart as well. All of that stuff is added at the same time if you just click that button. Anyway, I just want to run down through a few of these and show you what I'm talking about, because there's just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. They're pre-built, they're ready to go. All you have to do is plug one in, and like for example, if you need a divergent situation, you can deal with that divergent situation by picking out, as an example, zip red is up and zip gray is down. You plug in those 2 indicators and you're going to get those indicators with those conditions. In other words, they would be divergent. I'm going to, if I can find one here, I was looking for something like trend red lowest or something. There we go. Maybe this will work. Here is an example of trend red lowest. I'm going to highlight that one. I'm going to click OK. And when we do, what happens is we enter trend red lowest into the screen. And we also have trend red as the how do I say this, as the indicator, but it doesn't when you're down, when you're selecting indicators, you have to click on and go to an alert, and the alert is what you want, because now when it's set at alert, and then if I go over here and click the other button, it opens up a little pop-up window, and one of the choices is true. I can plug in true, and I now have the trend red lowest set up as a viable indicator. The thing I forgot to tell you about was if I click this button right here, it opens up into a pop-up window, and it goes down, it has price and volume and dozens of choices in both of those, and many other standard methods that TradeStation has decided they can use, you can use. They also, at the bottom, which is the most exciting, is you can there's an indicator line, and you can hit the indicator line, and then that box that I just showed you with all those DTVB indicators, that shows up, and you can pick the indicator that you want and plug it into that. And so that's how you get to the indicators. Now, if you go and click this plus box next to there, well, this thing here pops up. And you can, in this particular case, I've got this one's set at 111, and I'm going to drop that down to what we normally use. We had some different ways of tracking things before, but I'm putting 55 there because we've discovered that you can load additional data with the backload at 55 days, and it'll pick up everything that you need to, and it'll run. Now, let me point out, if you do not do this step and plug in at least 55 or more, your indicator will not work. It's a strange thing. There's been dozens and hundreds of people that have talked to TradeStation about this, but to no avail. Apparently you just can't preload it. You have to load it after you load your indicator. So you always have to open up your indicator, And then you can also load paint bars or show me's, which are other tools if you're not familiar with what they are. But you can load those on. They act just like indicators, but you can load those onto the system. Again, you have to load additional data so they pick up the days behind it, and they can calculate it effectively. The other thing that I'll point out here is it's by default it's on daily, and you can click the daily chart, daily analysis here, and it opens up into a window that has minutes and daily and weekly and monthly, but it's not showing up on the screen. But way down on the bottom is more intervals, and you press that and you click on the minutes, and again, remember it was set on daily, so when that window opens up, it clicks on minutes, and you type in 330, and you hit the OK button, and bingo, your interval went from daily to 330 minutes. Now, I do 330 minutes here specifically to show you that this is how you find gaps. Remember, the stock market is open for 6.5 hours. That's 390 minutes. You set your scans at 330 minutes, which is 1 hour before the market closes. We've got all of our scans that we want set up just like that to go off an hour before the close. If you have a lot of them, you may want to start a few minutes ahead of that, depending on how much time you need, because your computer will run about 4 at a time, and it takes a couple minutes for each one. So depending on how many you have, they should all be ready by 2:15 or 2:20 or whatever it is, and then you can complete your search before the bell goes off 45 minutes later. And so this is how you set your scan to print it out, because remember the principle behind a scan. It's not like the radar screen. The radar screen will give you information live. If you've got a crossover or whatever it is, it's telling you that information. As long as you got it coded right, sometimes you can goof up the code, but the radar screen is designed to give it to you live. The scanner has to have a closed candle in order to work. So in other words, if at noon in the trading day you run a scan, that scan is going to give you everything. It's going to give you a printout based on yesterday's close, because it can't grab a hold of the results of the current candle. It has to have a closed candle in order to spit out a scan. That's why we set the scan at an hour before the closing. You end up with a closed candle at 1 hour before the closing, and the scan will give you those results. And so you start your scan a couple of minutes after your time that you set up for the close of your candle. And you can literally set it up for 1 minute later. And so at 3:31 your scan is going to start, and it will spit out what the last candle close is. And so basically you've got 85% of the day gone, and what's at 2 o'clock is likely going to be there at the closing bell as well. So, and for others, depending on the scans that you're running, you could set that up for an hour and a half or even 2 hours before the closing bell. But we've usually found that an hour works pretty good. And so after you're done with that, you click the box that has a negative in it, you click it back, it's got a plus in it, and right now this scan is going to run Zip Zion lowest and Zip Red lowest. And so any any stock that has those two conditions with it, and of course the other condition of the average volume of 10 days that the shares transferred, bought and sold are in excess of 100,000, and the close and the last don't make any difference except in value. The close has to be above $5, and the close 1 day ago has to be less than $100. So those conditions obviously dictate what the results are going to be, because it's just going to give you those stocks in that price range with these conditions that you have set. So this method is a very good way of showing you how things work. If you click on the schedule here, like right now, I've got this thing to set at the dailies. You click the X up here, and when you click that, then the daily button will go off, and then you just make your changes with your button. You hit that, and then you can just type in 4 o'clock or whatever you want to. So you can set it at 3. Same thing with the minutes. You do that, and then you type in whatever minutes you want, and then you go to PM, and you click up or down here. Doesn't make any difference which one you want, and you can have it AM or PM. So that scan is going to start at that particular point in time, and that way you're like for example, going back here, we set the scan inside of the to run up at that 330 minute mark. And so what that basically is it tells us that we want the timing to coincide, and so what we're going to do is we're going to set this one shortly after it. And for example, if I click on this right now, I've got it set at 2:05. I'm in at Central Time, so the market closes at 3. So right now, this particular scan is set at 2:05, which is 5 minutes after the indicator. Excuse me. It's 5 minutes after the candle closed, because I had the candle closing at 2 o'clock. And so, and then of course you can flip over and do the results. In this case here, it's save every time the scan runs. You can also click this one down here and maybe save the last 50 runs that the computer makes. And then all you have to do is click OK, and you end up back with the view of the scanner. And so that's how the scan works in loading and finding the scan that you want. The pre-built indicators are just a tremendous benefit for you in getting a quick start to operating the system. And there are other videos. We show you how to write code quickly, and we're just we're just doing this as a benefit so that you don't have to find and locate so much information on TradeStation, because that's rather large, and so it takes a lot of time to find the stuff on that platform. But they do have a lot of information. We encourage you to go there. TradeStation is a powerhouse. There's so much stuff there, it's unbelievable. But that being said, we're trying to keep it as simple as we can, as basic as we can. That whole premise was an overriding premise in creating a system that anyone can learn, that will keep you knowledgeable about market forces at the same time. So hope you are having fun trading. I think it's important that be the case with you. I've been self-employed all my life. I think you may have heard me say that I've developed real estate in Minnesota for several decades and sold real estate for decades before that. But when I did it, I was having a lot of fun. And that's the important thing. Because early on in my career, I had a job working in a building, and I just really didn't care for that. I love to be outside. I'm an outdoorsman, and hope you are too. I love it, but that being said, this is a fantastic system. If you just apply yourself to it, it will bring results that you can't imagine. I mean, nobody is showing you, or we haven't found anybody, put it that way, that will show you how to find gaps before the gap occurs. There's people trading gaps, but they're trading those gaps after it gaps, and then because it's so volatile, that's why they're trading the gap. And that's not us. We show you when the gaps are going to occur. If you haven't noticed as well, anytime you see the word live in capital letters in front of it, those are videos, or excuse me, those are gap situations that we found ahead of time on the day that we determined that was going to be the gap, and we filmed it that way. And you can go to the symbol and see how we did. We don't have a lot of them, but we've got a few, and we also make a video on our newsletter each week in Facebook. And I encourage you to be a part of that. It just gives you some updates on some things that we're familiar with, and just it'll keep you posted on key things that we think are important. So have fun trading. It's enjoy what you're doing. If you don't enjoy it, find something else to do, because life is too darn short.